Right, time to get started. Well, welcome everyone to our overview of the Refsum Patient Registry. Let me introduce to you our presenters for today. So I'm Kristie DeMarco, and I'm the founder and president of Global DARE Foundation. I'll be presenting along with Gill, who's the clinical research specialist at the Coordination of Rare Diseases at Sanford Research. CoRDS for short. All right, our agenda for today. I'm going to introduce and give you a little bit of background on Global DARE Foundation and cover some housekeeping details for the webinar. I'm also going to provide an overview of our patient registry. So why are we doing a patient registry and what are some of the highlights associated with that? And then Polly's going to give you an introduction to Sanford CoRDS, and as well as give you a live demonstration of the webinar. And then we'll move to a question and answer session where you'll have the opportunity to ask questions on the system. All right, next up, let's see if I can move the slides here. All right, so the housekeeping details. So all of the participants are in listen-only mode. There are a few ways that you'll be able to ask the questions during the Q&A. So you can, in the Q&A box in Zoom, type your question out and we'll see that. And you can do that at any point as we present, and we'll answer all of those questions at the end of our presentation. You can also, from your keyboard, press the Alt-Y button to ask a question, or to raise your hand as well. And then if you're a call-in user, you can press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. After the presentation is over, we'll go ahead and we'll start with the questions in the Q&A box. Then we'll move into the dial-in participants and then the online participants that have raised their hand. Today's session will be recorded for later viewing and be available on our Global DARE Foundation website. All right, a little bit about the Global DARE Foundation mission. Global DARE Foundation was established in October 2019. DARE stands for Defeat Adult Refsum Everywhere. Our mission is to promote worldwide awareness and better quality of life for all who are diagnosed with adult Refsum disease. Our goal is to support research, education initiatives, awareness campaigns, and advocacy. Research is at the center of what we do because we dare to believe in a cure for adult Refsum disease. So why a patient registry? So as I just said, research is at the center of what we do because we want to drive forward better therapies for adult Refsum disease. So a patient registry will simply create lots of progress for us. We haven't seen a lot of progress on Refsum disease over the last 15 years. There was a lot of great work done, in the late 1990s, early 2000s to understand the disease and get us the diet and, help inform some of the things that have helped patients in the past. But not a lot has been done in the last 15 years. And so how do we change that? We need to collect data. We as patients have a lot of data that we can provide to researchers to help them to better understand the disease. So creating a registry really connects our community to researchers and puts good quality data in their hands. And it really helps us on several different fronts. There are no published treatment guidelines for Refsum today, and that's part of our goals at Global DARE Foundation, is to get those published treatment guidelines and to be able to collect information on how patients are currently being treated will be very helpful in putting together those treatment guidelines. By seeing what are the things that impact patients the most will help us drive the specific research to develop better therapies. By giving access to Global DARE Foundation to the information, it'll help us to determine where do patients need the most support and where should we focus our efforts. Plus, it'll help us as a foundation really help drive those specific research initiatives with the researchers. We're meeting with them on a regular basis, and having a good understanding of where the patient needs are will help us in that drive. it'll present, like I said, a really strong link between the researchers and the Refsum community. And at the end of the day, you know, numbers matter when it comes to getting interest from investors. It's a profit business out there, no matter whether we like that or not. It's being able to show that we've got a large community. Even though, you know, we know we're a 1 in a million, who knows when we get down to it, maybe it's more prevalent than that. But even so, if we can collect and have patients register into our registry, it will definitely motivate and help investors be interested in Refsum disease. You know, and as we look to drive better therapies and have completed preclinical work, you know, we'll need to identify patients for clinical trial. And so having a patient registry makes that much more feasible. And to make this happen, we really need support from the whole community. So, you know, from our patients, from our physicians that are treating patients and letting them know that this registry exists, you know, you know, it'll make a tremendous difference for us. So that's why. And then let me give you a little bit of registry highlights. So each participant, you know, as you register within the Sanford CoRDS platform, you receive a unique identifier. And so this enables us to de-identify your data, really meaning that we're stripping off your name and identifying information so that that won't be passed on to researchers. This protects your privacy and allows for the data still to be used to drive research, but like I said, your information is held private. And researchers, it's not anyone can get access to this information. This de-identified data, you know, researchers have to be approved to be able to access that data, and they'll go through a review process for that approval through Global DARE and Sanford CoRDS as well. The registry is compliant with the General Data Protection regulation as well, GDPR. I know many have asked me that question in the past, so I want to make very clear that it is compliant with GDPR. And who owns the data? The patients own the data. So at any point in time, you can participate in the registry, and you can also decide to withdraw your data from the registry at any time. And there's no cost to participants. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really important for you to provide consent to Global DARE Foundation to have access to the data, because then we can help to better understand Refsum disease. You know, we can help drive research initiatives, and we can and it can let us know how we can support patients. All right, now I'm going to, this is more just a visual picture of how the registry works. You know, so patients, you know, will provide data, you know, in many different, and as you go through the registry questions, you'll see, you know, what these look like, you know, around diagnosis and symptoms and ongoing treatment, our Phytanic acid levels, you know, how we manage our diet. And all that data comes into the Sanford CoRDS registry platform. And then through, as I mentioned earlier, an approval process, researchers can get access to that data, as well as Global DARE Foundation, as long as you give us permission. We can you know, drive the treatment guidelines, build programs, enhance research, and, you know, enable clinical trials in the future. Now I think I'm going to pass it over. I'm going to stop sharing and provide it, have Polly start to talk to you about CoRDS. So, oh, actually, no, I'm going to actually, that was a mistake on my end. I'm actually supposed to still continue to share. So, mistake number one. All right, so Polly, over to you.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us. And I'll just go over a little bit about CoRDS. I know that you covered some good content there, but I'll just add a couple more things here. What is CoRDS? CoRDS is a patient registry for all rare diseases, unaffected carriers, and the undiagnosed. We tie together patients, advocacy groups, and researchers. And CoRDS is made available at no cost to patients, advocacy groups, or researchers. And this is free, and it always will be. CoRDS is funded by the Sanford Health, and this is why it's free of cost. So we want the money to go towards the advocacy groups to raise money for their organization and not towards their registry. So this is a great way for them just, you know, anything that they raise can go to their organization, which is really important to us. And we will always be here. We're not going anywhere. We're disease agnostic, so we cover all of the rare diseases across the board. And so that's also very important. All right, we can go to the next slide there. All right, so who can access your data? There's researchers who can access the data, and that's de-identified information. And this will be available to researchers studying their rare, uncommon, or undiagnosed disorders. And this will be also flooded through the CoRDS Scientific Review Board, which is known as the SAB. And they will they'll review the research to ensure that the right of CoRDS participants are upheld. So they're going to make sure that everything looks good, everything, anybody who wants to study the researchers is legit, if you can think about it that way. So just make sure everything is right. Other patient registries can also access this, and then patient advocacy groups. That would be like the Global DARE Foundation, representing individuals with rare or uncommon diseases who have partnered with CoRDS. They can access information in the CoRDS registry that may not include participants' names. So they'll get all the information, and that will help them gather their information. We can give them to researchers, and they can educate their community with this information as well, which is also really important for a rare condition. All right, next slide there. So is your data safe? Yes, we take your privacy very seriously. Your identifiable information can only be accessed by CoRDS personnel and any patient advocacy group with whom you consent to share your information. And this will be at the beginning of the activation, or at the beginning of the CoRDS standard questionnaire, and you'll be able to give consent on who you want your data to be shared to. All right, next slide. And here's a little bit of statistics. This is from since July of 2020. We have 1,373 rare diseases, 7,000 known worldwide. That is how many we have in our registry today. And we have 67 partner groups, as you can see. We have 9,236 participants in 72 countries and in 50 states. So we continue to see increased numbers with this, and you know, advocacy groups like what we're representing today, this just increases, and we continue to work on that every day. Okay, continue. And so how do you enroll? So you can go to the Global DARE Foundation and go to their website. And as you can see on the right side, you can click the button down below to click here to enroll. And this is going to take you right to the activation form. So all you need to do is click that, and then I will demonstrate what the activation form is going to look like. And then another important part to this website as well is you can see at the bottom it says click here to update. So anytime you have new information about your diagnosis, about your disease, we always encourage you to go in and update your questionnaire, because the information that you put into that questionnaire is going to be collected. That data is going to be collected. So every time you go in, change something, that's going to show the researchers that there's progressive, how your disease is progressing, and it will collect all of that data there. So that's super important. And the website right here on the left is defeatadultrefsumeverywhere.org. So you can see that link right there. So that'll take you right to our questionnaire. You can keep going there. So here's the activation form. So after you select that button on the previous screen, it'll take you to the activation form. And right here you can, as you can see under participant type, you can see if you are enrolling yourself, you can enroll for your child, and then if you are an LAR, legally authorized representative as well. And then you'll just type in your participant information there. We'll just need your first name, last name, and then right here it asks you, do you understand and speak English? If you push yes, it'll take you to the consent form down below. If you say no, this is going to take you to a short form. And it's just going to tell you that you need somebody who can translate that for you, translate the questionnaire for you. All right, we can go to the next slide. So right here is where you will type in your what disease or what condition that you have as well. And then this will make sure that that disease-specific questionnaire is attached to the standard questionnaire. And we'll go through that during the demonstration as well. And then also on this activation form, you'll be able to select whether you want online participation or mail-based. And so if you don't like computers, don't like to deal with the computer aspect of things, you can always push mail-based, and that's going to send us a notification that we need to send out a paper form to you that you can fill out, and then that will come with a return envelope, and then you can send it right back to us free of no charge at all. And then the CoRDS team will actually enter that into the database. And then if you do not have a computer at all, you can also call the number, and we'll go through that at the end of this PowerPoint as well. And you can just say, hey, I don't have a computer. Can you just send me this form? And we can absolutely send you this form in the mail. Okay, we can go on to the next slide there. And this is the consent form that you will see. And I just encourage you to read through the whole consent form. If you do not scroll through the whole consent form, you will not be able to select that checkbox at the bottom there. So just make sure you scroll through the whole consent form, and then that checkbox will become available. And then after you are done filling that out, you'll be able to select the submit button. All right, and after you do that, it will take you to this login screen right here. And as you can see, my username, password, you're going to create your own password here. And then there's a security question that you'll have to fill out, and then your security answer. And then you will select login. Go to the next screen. And then from that page, I will share my screen here, and I'll give you a little demonstration of the CoRDS registry. All right. Can you see my screen okay? Just want to give me a confirmation of that.
Yes, you're good. You're good. You're sorry, I was on mute. You're all good.
All right, awesome. Yeah. So after we do the login page, we're going to take you. This is called the CoRDS standard questionnaire. So as you can see, you'll see your disease specific. You'll see your disease here, and then we'll click next. And this is the screen that I was talking about, that you're just saying, I am 18 years or older. Here's the consent form again. It'll show you in case you want to read through that again. And it's going to tell you how long this questionnaire is going to take, about 10 to 20 minutes. And then we'll just go here. And this is where you're giving permission for CoRDS to contact you about participating in future research studies. You're giving CoRDS permission to contact you about donating sample of blood, tissue, biospecimens. And then this last one, you're giving permission to CoRDS to provide a subset of de-identified information to other databases. So at the beginning, you can see by clicking all of these, by participating in CoRDS, your de-identified information will be visible to researchers who can access the CoRDS registry. So this is where you're giving consent to the researchers to get your de-identified information.
Hey, Polly.
Yeah.
Can you zoom up a little bit? Because your screen is rather small.
Yes.
So that would be
you
I
bet.
think beneficial
a little bit better?
for viewing. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I think that will be.
Or maybe it's, need to be able to see my, is that okay right there?
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Okay. Sometimes when you zoom in, the screen can come it can look a little weird. So I'll try to play with it while we keep going here. But you can see this okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then right here, this is just where you're going to add additional information. I'm just going to ask you your address, in case we want to send you stuff in the mail, where you live, your email address, things like that. So that's just filling out a little more personal information. And then you can add a secondary contact if you would like. This isn't, you don't have to if you don't want to, but this is optional for you as well. And then right here, this is just asking if you have any special communication needs. Do you need sign language required, spoken language preferred? So right here, this is a mandatory question. So I just selected no special needs. And then right here is just going to ask you a little more about sex, female, race, ethnicity. This can be important to researchers as well. And then it'll just ask you a couple more questions. Is the participant still living? And if a participant is deceased, you can still register them as well. That information is just as important to collect as well. So right here, gives you that option right here. All right, and then we're just going to go to diagnosis. This is where you will complete your rare diagnosis symptoms. So what kind of symptoms are you having? If it's undiagnosed, if you have other diagnosis along with this, this is where you can type that in. Asking you the age of diagnosis, age of first symptoms, that kind of stuff, and how your rare diagnosis was determined. You'll be able to fill that out here. So these are just more standard questionnaires or questions. And then if anybody in your family experiences this condition as well, this can be captured here. And then we also have some quality of life questions you can fill out here. It's just asking about general health, mental health, kind of things like that. All right, and right here it's just asking you some clinical research. If you've ever had donated some specimens to any other researchers, things like that, you can fill out here. And then this will lead you right into the disease-specific questionnaire. And I think, Kristie, you're going to kind of take over this part. So this is where Kristie created her disease-specific questionnaire, and the standard questionnaire will roll right into this questionnaire. So this is what we're looking at right here.
Great, thanks, Polly. So if you could go to the next screen. So this is where you'll have the opportunity to give permission to Global DARE Foundation to have access to your data. Like I said earlier, by giving us access to the data, that will help us to drive research, build targeted programs that will help support the community, as well as for us as a community to better understand the disease. So by clicking on Global DARE Foundation, that will help us from that perspective. If you could click the next. So the first section, there's different sections, and you'll see at the top it says at diagnosis. So this section is all about the things that you experienced at diagnosis, not necessarily what you're experiencing today, but what you were experiencing at diagnosis. So you can see it'll ask, might be a little bit repetitive from the CoRDS questions, but this is more targeting against the common Refsum features that might be experienced by Refsum patients. And so we want to understand the prevalence of those features. And so that'll help us better inform, where are the places where people are seeing most of the challenges. And then the second question in here talks about when was your retinitis pigmentosa diagnosis? And that is different than your diagnosis date age for Refsum. And so when you're completing the standard questionnaire, it should be around when did you receive your, it asks you the age of your Refsum, your diagnosis. That's really around your Refsum diagnosis. And so the reason why we're asking when you received your retinitis pigmentosa diagnosis, because we really want to, in our awareness campaigns, really want to show to ophthalmologists and neurologists and ENTs and other clinicians, like there's a big gap between a retinitis pigmentosa diagnosis and a Refsum diagnosis, which we all know is a shame because, we actually have a therapy that can help to slow our vision loss. Because if we don't go on a low phytanic acid diet, we'll continue to have this toxin, circulating throughout our bodies at a higher level than if we were on a low phytanic acid diet. So very important to kind of highlight the importance of getting an early diagnosis. And I think by collecting this information and highlighting it in tangible facts will be very helpful in our awareness campaign. And so then you'll also see we ask about in this section around the types of medical tests that were taken at diagnosis. That's really, around understanding what led up to the diagnosis, what tests were involved, and what kind of confirmed the diagnosis. There's a couple questions relative. If you scroll a little bit down, question number 3, Polly, is around your degree of peripheral vision. And so we really want to understand where was your vision at diagnosis versus, you'll also have, questions about your current state. And so, how has your vision progressed? Similar to hearing in question number 4. And if you scroll up a little bit, when I went through the questionnaire myself, I had to make sure that I kept scrolling till I got to the bottom of the screen, because sometimes you might think, oh, I'm done with question number 5. I didn't see that there's 7 through, whatever's left on this page. And so it's important that you scroll through the whole page before you click save and next. So there's a couple more questions here on the diagnosis, but if you want to flip to the next page, this goes on to ongoing Refsum management. So this is more about current state. So what are the current systems that your symptoms you are experiencing, and asking about some of the things that if you need hearing devices, what types of devices are you using? This will help us understand kind of, what are the things that are being used by Refsum patients? What's your current degree of peripheral vision? Have you had cataract surgery? Do you experience macular edema? These are all to kind of understand what your current state is of the disease. And if you can scroll up, Polly. Let's see what else is here. Talk a little bit about number of hospitalizations. I think it's important because there can be many reasons why a phytanic acid level could spike regardless of how compliant we are on the diet. And so I think it's important to understand like how impactful are those situations to us, and what that can help inform us and further work that we do. You could click to the next page. So this talks a little bit about what specialists you're seeing. One of the things I was talking about earlier is driving, what's our treatment guidelines. There really isn't, there aren't any published treatment guidelines today. So a newly diagnosed patient is really fending for themselves on what the care is. Hopefully you connect with you have a really good general practitioner, or you've connected with a really good specialist that helps you with that, but that's not always the case. And it would be great if we could have some standard treatment guidelines, and really understanding, what patients are receiving today, I think would be very helpful in informing those guidelines. You can flip to the next page, Molly. And then medical tests, same type of thing. What are the typical exams that you're receiving today, and in what frequency? So if you click the question, click that, you'll see like there's an array of answers that you can choose. So you can go to the next. So continues on. So I think there's a section here as you get into question number 21 through 27, really asking questions around your phytanic acid level. When's your last level been done? What was the level? There's a couple questions here around what's your highest ever phytanic acid level? What was your lowest? What was your highest in the last 3 years? So, you might have had a really high phytanic acid level, 10 years ago, but now your level's been more stable. So, help us understand, in the more recent years, what has that level been? For someone like myself, it'll be the same answer because I've only had my diagnosis for 1 year. So, but I think it's very helpful in understanding the progression. And then, an average over the last 3 years to kind of understand, like, where do you fall in the general, to get an idea of where some of our patients, have a hard time getting their levels low, and so what has the average been over the last 3 years? I think that will be very informative to clinicians and researchers to know, are we able to get our levels down to where they would like to see them, below 200 or below 100. I think there are patients who struggle to get it below 500. And so I think it'd be very valuable information to know what's that average over the last 3 years. So if you could, I don't know if there's any more on that page. That might be the the end of that page. So if you're going to click to the next page. So this is plasmapheresis. So we know that there's different views on plasmapheresis around the world, around when it's used. So this is to help us understand when it's used, what are the triggers for it to be used, how often is it routinely used. I think this will be helpful as they put together the treatment guidelines, and obviously when we get down to understanding how often it's used, then we can drive down to looking at the success of it as well. You can go on to the next page. This talks a little bit about the low phytanic acid diet and some of our general eating practices. Are we, maybe there could be some folks that have Refsums that aren't practicing a low phytanic acid diet. I hope not. I hope all of them are. But there could be situations where someone has chosen not to. It'd be good to understand. And then as it relates to their current symptoms and things. And then, what's your compliance to the diet? How often do we eat in a day? What's our average time between meals? All of these things can impact levels. And so I think it's important to kind of understand, what are we generally seeing within our population? And then if you can go to the next page. Talks a little bit about quality of life. How does Refsum disease impact our quality of life? And here's some initial questions that we put out there. This questionnaire is a starting point. We, used our medical and scientific advisory board. We had several people within the community help us to put together these questions. We'll continue to evolve it over time. And so here's some initial questions that we have on quality of life, and we might have more in the future, as people bring us forward recommendations or we have additional questions from the community. We're going to move to the next slide. This talks a little bit about mobility, and how Refsum disease impacts our mobility, and if we use any devices in the use of our in the use for our mobility. I'm going to flip to the next slide. Exercise, there's been a lot of questions lately around exercise and, its impact on Refsum and our phytanic acid levels, and trying to get a pulse on the exercise within the community, and, how often does someone exercise? How long does someone usually exercise? Is Refsum currently impacting the certain types of exercise? That will help us in understanding what, should we pursue a study relative to exercise? I'm going to flip to the next slide. So this talks more about general health, height, weight, are there any other medical conditions? It'll go on to, on the next slide, I think it talks about, the next page, it talks about any, what medicines you might have or supplements or things like that. So you want to flip to the next. Yeah, it talks about surgeries, other things, any issues relative to joint pain and things like that. We're trying to find out if there's common things outside of what the Refsum community is currently, as far as the standard set of, symptoms. Are there other things that are also common amongst our population? All right, flip to the next slide. All right, and then this is just a few questions on pregnancy. There's definitely some folks in the community that are interested in understanding if they were to become pregnant, what the impact or what the challenges might be. So understanding the past history around that would be valuable. We go on to the next. Right, and then this is just a kind of an open dialogue box of, where you could add some additional details that you would think that would be worth noting. If there's something unique about your situation or something that you think is valuable to share, I would suggest putting it in this box here. Let me go on to the next. I think, does that get you to the finish? Yeah, so I think in that last bit, I think it talked about finishing, right? And then if you want to add a file, like say a genetic result, you would do it here. There is size limitations, to this. I think it's about 100 kilobytes. I think that's where, I don't think it says it on this page, but I think in my upload of documents here, I think I was capped at 100 kilobytes. And so I put in only my first page of my genetic report. And just note that when you do upload a document and it shows the file name, after you've uploaded with no error and you click submit, it's there. It won't show that it's there afterwards. It'll, I think in a future version of the registry platform, you might be able to see the documents that you've uploaded. But know that if the file name does appear within that file name category, it has been uploaded and it's been submitted. So you don't need to worry about submitting it again. So I think, and then if you want to,
you want me to go through kind of this?
Yeah, if you want to go through that, that would be great, Polly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so this is what every participant will see, and then you'll be able to click the home button. This will get you back to the original page here. And then right here is a button where you can do select update questionnaire, which I said earlier is very important. Anything that's new in your diagnosis is very, very important to capture. We capture that longitudinal data, and so that will always be captured. And then, so that's where you can do that there. And then we have my messages. If you guys have any questions at all, you'll be able to message us right in this portal here, and it will come straight to our portal, and we'll be able to talk back and forth if you have any problems or anything like that. And another cool feature is my comparison graphs. So you can actually see everybody in the whole rare disease registry, the percentages, the age of diagnosis. So this is with the whole registry. If you click down on this drop down box, you'll be able to see just your specific disease, and then just let go. And then this is because it's the testing environment. If this was in the live environment, you'd see the data here that's available that you'd select. So right here in the testing environment, I'm the only one who signed up for it, and so it says 100% female. But like I said, in the live version, which is what you guys would be participating in, it would show different numbers, more numbers, of course, and state as well for this disease, South Dakota, because that's where I'm at right now, and then country, USA. So, and then you'll also get to go to my history, and this will show you everything that you completed. The enrollment, I've done it 3 times. It shows that you've read the informed consent, that your enrollment has been completed, so that's useful to know, and that you submitted the screening form. So if you have any questions, you can always go back to my history. If you're like, oh, what did I fill out? You can always check here. And another cool feature that we have is family branching. And so you'll be able to actually link, if you have a relative, you'll actually be able to link your relatives here. Researchers won't be able to see won't be able to see your name who's linked. They'll just be able to know the numbers who are linked. So they'll be able to know that, those 2 people are related, but it will not show your names of who's related. So that's another cool feature. And then here's our phone number up here if you need us, and the account settings and everything like that. So that's kind of a wrap up of that.
Great, thanks, Polly. I think now we do have some questions. Okay. So let's see. I think we have some questions, and I think more some statements, and I think we can talk about those. I think there's a comment around the accessibility of the pages. The activation form was rather small font, and I think what you can do is you can use your your web browser to zoom in and zoom out, relative to the different sections within the questionnaire and within the system. So I think if you need to be in larger font, you can certainly zoom in to be able to see that.
Yep, that's right. And with doing all this through Zoom, it could be smaller as well. If you actually log into it yourself, you'll be able to play with those settings, and it might be easy to read as well.
Right. I guess it's a question for me. Who at Global Dare has access to the personal data? So this would be, only the individuals that have signed our privacy policy within Global Dare Foundation. So a very few limited number of individuals will have access to the data. Let's see, the forms are challenging for visually impaired. I think that's another, related to the zooming in and zooming out. So I think depending upon your your computer, I think you'll have to use those Zoom settings. Let's see. There is a difference between diagnosis and onset symptoms, often at a very young age, and it takes a while before it becomes problematic, which is true. I think that's why it's very difficult to get a Refsum diagnosis early, and a reason why we need to further educate clinicians on this disease, and I think being able to fully document, how long it takes from someone to get their retinitis pigmentosa diagnosis to Refsum will be a very, telling fact, right, that we can provide that would be, since it's one of the only few retinitis pigmentosa diagnosis that actually has a therapy, right? Like they should be thinking about it more, right? Because instead of them telling them that there's nothing that can be done, are they actually providing a full view of what the potential might be? And obviously with genetic testing, more prevalence, we might see more of that, but I wish all retinitis pigmentosa patients received a Phytanic acid level test. I think that's not foolproof. There can be people who have a normal result and still have Refsum from what we've seen. But I think it would go a long way to helping get more people diagnosed. A question too is, when will the form be screen reader friendly? So I think right now we know that the screen readers are not accessible to this platform. I know in talking, Polly, I don't know if you want to talk to this, but I know when we've chatted before with your team, it is on their radar to be done. I think a lot of the registry platforms, I did spend a good amount of time researching many of the various patient registry platforms, and being screen reader friendly is definitely something they're all struggling with. I couldn't find a patient registry platform that had that accessibility right now. I should say probably within Global Foundation's price range. There were some very, very expensive platforms out there that didn't really add much more value to the actual collection of the data, but did have screen reader accessibility. We just, at this point in time we've only been operational obviously since October of last year, so the funding that we have available is very small. And so Sanford was able to provide us everything we needed, really, except for that one piece. And obviously it's a significant piece, and hopefully, it'll be something they'll be able to deliver on in the near term. I don't know if you want to talk at all more about that.
Yeah, Kristie, you're exactly right. We're still trying to go over the logistics of those. We bring it up in our team meetings. We're trying to get that accessible for people with impaired vision. So we're still working through that, and hopefully we'll get the ball rolling on that sooner than later. So it is on our radar, like you said.
Great. Let's see what else we've got for questions. Let's see. It says, under GDPR, this data must be controlled at DARE by named individuals only, and only those must be allowed to view it. Yeah, so I mean, I can take that offline, obviously, related to that, but we do have individuals that would, be part of our advocacy work at Global DARE Foundation. They would actually have to sign our documentation associated with having access to any data related to Global DARE Foundation. So they would be named individuals that would have access to the data, and they would have to sign paperwork related to that and abide by our privacy policy. Let's see, in the electronic age and online storage of data, how safe is it to hacking?
Yeah, so this is behind our firewall at Sanford. It's the same firewall that's used to protect our data for people in our hospitals as well. So it's very protected. It's behind our whole Sanford system firewall. So that data that you have in there is very protected in there.
Great. I think, let's see. Oop. Let's see. Could those who can't complete the form do so over the phone by a buddy volunteer?
Yeah, and so if that person is they can always, with the person filling out the activation form, if you want to call in, I can go over the questionnaire with you, and then your volunteer can go over the questionnaire with you, as long as you trust them to, consent and everything like that. And you can always call and consent over the phone to me, and I can just make a note in your chart that you use somebody to help you complete this questionnaire. So that is okay. Yep.
Okay. I think that's it, unless, let me just double check and see. Let me double check that we don't have any, anyone who's raised their hand from our dial-in participants. Nope. So I think that's it. So I have just a couple things. I'm going to take over the screen, Polly.
Sounds good.
And I'm going to just cover the last screen here. So just a couple important tips to remember. Oh, can you see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay. For some reason, I can't see any of the normal bars up here. So, all right. So important tips to remember. We touched on it a couple of times. The CoRD registry is not compatible with the screen reader at this time. So you would need assistance if a screen reader is required. The device you should use is a computer instead of a tablet or a smartphone. You'll just have a better user experience there. Zooming, as we mentioned a couple times, will be required if you need to have larger font, and then you might need to scroll back down to be able to see the save and next button, because sometimes when you scroll up very high, the save and next button will disappear, and so you just need to zoom back down, go to the save and next, and zoom back up. So there might be required each page, you might need to do some zooming in and out. So the questionnaire you can save at any point in time. You don't have to complete it all in one setting. We think it takes about an hour to do it from, going from the CoRDS registry to the end. And then, you can, close it out, go back in at any point in time and pick it up where you left off. Even if you clicked finish, you didn't complete all the questions, you can go back later. Maybe there's a couple questions that you needed to go and find some information for. Like say if you get to some difficult questions, like I say here, if you encounter some difficult questions, feel free to move on, come back to those later. A lot of people will look to complete the questionnaire and complete all the easy ones first, right? And just, complete those all together and then notate the ones that they need to go back to and answer. And maybe there's some that you'll need to go, if you need to go ask your physician, or if you need to consult some additional lab results. And it's perfectly fine to go back and complete those later. And each time, if you get another phytanic acid level, say you've completed all the questions today and you get another phytanic acid level in 6 months and you want to update it in the system, you can feel free to go in and do that, right? This is supposed to be a longitudinal study, which means that longitudinal just means that we're tracking it over time, right? So it really helps us to really understand the disease more, and we can understand the progression over time. And so the more data you can provide, the more informed we'll be. And we mentioned earlier, a paper version is available. You can do it a couple of ways. I think Polly mentioned that if you do the activation form, it allows you to say, no, I don't want to complete it online. I want to do it in paper format. They'll then in turn send it directly to you, and you'll be able to complete it through the paper version and send it back free of charge through the mail. The other means would be to call them. So say if you don't have access to a computer, you need to call them. You can call them and they'll mail you out the questionnaire. I'm sure there'll be more questions that come up on the Global DARE Foundation website. When you go to the website, you'll see most of the information that we've presented here relative to important tips to remember. We'll actually have this webinar posted there, information on how to contact CoRDS as well. I think I passed this. So you can contact, here's the contact information. I think many of you know how to contact me directly. I'm happy to answer any question on the Refsum specific questions. You know, if, we obviously developed those questions at Global Dare Foundation. And so, you know, Polly and her team might not know exactly the purpose of a particular question that we put in that Refsum specific questionnaire. And I'm happy to take any questions on those or provide clarifications. You know, Polly and her team at Sanford are there to help support you in the use of their system, obviously provide you paper versions of the registry questionnaire, and answer any questions you have about the use of the system or their questionnaire in particular. I know there were some questions from some individuals that tested on the system, you know, around, there's a couple questions around ethnicity and stuff like that. And maybe, you know, it is a US based platform. So some of the things might be unique to the US or might not quite understand, you know, sometimes we all speak a little bit different language, right? And so if you need clarity on those things, it's more than comfortable to reach out to them either by email or by phone. I think that's it. For some reason, I've lost my, let me see if I can, no. See if there was any remaining questions that came out. No, I think not. So I think with that, I think we'll close, and thank you, Polly, for coming and giving us a presentation on the system, and thanks all for joining and listening in, and I'm hopeful that we'll draw a lot of great information from this registry and help drive research so that we can have better therapies for this disease. So thanks everyone for attending and asking your great questions. So I think that's it. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
All right, have a good day.